We are but 24-ish hours away from Michigan's sign-stealing saga, the alleged advanced scouting saga, to come to a close as the announcement came out that Friday, everything will be revealed from the NCAA. Let's talk about it and prime you for it right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Thank you so much to all of our everydayers, those who check out the show every single day, and thank you for making us your first listen. I'm sure there are a lot of you who don't normally check out the show that is back checking it out, or even had never checked out the show and started watching or listening back in October or November of 2023, because we had a little bit of a different narrative than what was put out there, and continue to draw the ire of a lot of rival fans, rival media. But as everyone found out about a year ago at this time, that I kind of knew what I was talking about, because I was talking to the one person who knew what had actually happened. Today, now we're going to start off with something of a primer as we wait for the results of the NCAA's finding on, quote, Signgate. Then we're going to kind of get into some of the ramifications and a little bit more in segment 2. Segment 3, we're gonna have a little bit of fun with some rival stuff, because that's what we do here. It's always good-hearted on our end, but it's funny because they don't look at it that way. They get nasty, they get mean. There's a reason why I blocked pretty much every Buckeye on and Spartan on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So let's get into it. Sometime tomorrow, I have the feeling it's probably going to not take all day. Like, I don't think it's going to be like a 5 p.m. news dump or anything. I think that this stuff is going to come to fruition at before the evening, but I could be wrong. But that is the feeling that I have, that we're all going to kind of know relatively soon of what the deal is going to be. So it's going to be interesting, because you had some counter narratives put out there by the people who have been pushing the quote narrative, right? Like, we've spent a lot of time on this show. If you haven't watched or listened, we spent a lot of this time on this show counteracting the quote narrative, the narrative being put out there that this was a scandal that was only befitting of the Houston Astros and their own sign-stealing saga, and that this was the biggest scandal of all time, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, we tried to weave our way through that, knowing what actually happened compared to a lot of the conjecture out there. Now, there's still a ton of conjecture out there. I see colleagues of mine, friends, just random Twitter folk that are on the other side of the fence that love to point out that, Connor was standing next to Jesse Minter during the plays. If he's doing that, then that means that Minter knew. And it's like, well, Jesse Minter knew Connor. Jim Harbaugh knew Connor. I don't know why people think that they didn't know Connor. He was hired to be the sign stealer. That's what he was hired to do. That's fully legal to do. Obviously, what's in question were the methods. Now, again, sending your mom and your military buddy to Purdue games and them getting shaky iPhone video that we don't know, right? Because, again, the evidence. There's never been any evidence of, like, the videos themselves, number one. Keep that in mind. There's never been anything that's the NCAA, to my knowledge, never has had, like, a video that is like, well, there it is. There's the video received. Nor have they ever been able to tie that he received the video and used it. right? The types of things that understandably the NCAA is not the United States courts, but does not have any preponderance of proof there. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't going to be a punishment, more so because they're looking at some of the things like, failure to cooperate. Now, Connor obviously did cooperate, maybe not to the degree that the NCAA wanted, right? Didn't give over his, give over all of his personal details, didn't give him his social security number and say, go and open a bunch of overseas checking accounts, things of that nature, right? A lot of things didn't happen like that, but he did appear at the COI. Jim Harbaugh did not. Now, this is a point of disambiguation that we've been making constantly, especially to the Michigan fans that want to say, well, the NCAA wants its pound of flesh. I want to remind you that the COI and the enforcement staff are completely different. The people who were behind this investigation and doing all of these different things and, accepting or declining negotiated resolutions, they have no part in this part of the process. Once you reach the COI, it's the COI. And these are people who are not employed on a full-time basis by the NCAA. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see their conclusion in and of itself, right? This is not a situation where it's the people who were like, even though the NCAA is judge, jury, executioner, it's a little bit different, right? This is like, it's a jury, right? That's what the COI is. We got past the judge, jury, executioner part, getting past the negotiated resolution. So now you have essentially, it's not a jury of the peers, certainly, but it is a jury, essentially. And everyone got to lay out their case and all of that. And so on Friday, we're finally going to come to conclusion as far as that's concerned. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly what's in there. So let's talk about my feeling about it all. And with that, we're going to kind of get into some of the narratives that have been out there in the last 24-ish hours versus the narratives that have existed the whole time. And then we'll kind of get into some other stuff there in the end. So let's move on to what do I think is going to be in there. We will do that here in just a moment. But before we do, August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champs before week one even kicks off, this right here is your moment. Take a flyer in the MVP race. You know it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson. So just go ahead and knock that in. Crown your champion in August. You know it's the Detroit Lions. So just do that too. I mean, you just know it. It's in your heart. It's innate. Or you can parlay your division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel. Play your game. Playing in the background helps me fall asleep more often than not. Like I just think of like what happened in the last 24 hours. Like, and then the unlikeliest creature, talking Bilbo Baggins finding the one ring. That's not a spoiler. It happens in the first 5 minutes of the Lord of the Rings. If you haven't watched The Hobbit, then maybe it takes a little bit longer. But anyway, Justin Spiro put out their information that jibed with everything that some of my colleagues have been hearing all along. That this is not going to be the hammer that has been teased so hard and heavily by, and I'll just name the people, right? By Spiro himself, although he says that he never talked about punishment, but certainly this is not what he intimated. By the now incarcerated Kirk Barton, by Nevada Buck, by Premier Drum, Brohio had kind of modulated a while ago, according to what I've seen on message boards, but This is going to jibe a lot more with the things that have been said on this show for now years. As according to I mean, this is what Spiro put out there. And it's going to be a fine, some show causes. The one place I disagree is essentially both Jim Harbaugh and Connor Stalions are catapulted to the sun with the show causes. I don't know that that'll be the case. Maybe Harbaugh, right? You want to feel like you came down hard on somebody. He was the least cooperative because he's in the NFL. He wasn't really forthcoming with all that stuff at this point. But, part of it is he didn't know. But then you can't underestimate, too, the Tony Petitti letters. To my knowledge, he sent in 2 letters. One for the beginning, one for the end of the NCAA deliberations, and said Michigan's been punished enough. So with that, I think that that can play a big role multiple ways. Number one, he's already punished Michigan in season before all the facts came out. Right? That was kind of the big thing. Do I have a problem in general with Tony Petitti issuing a punishment? No, I did with the timing. I did with there was a lot of pressure that was placed upon him by others who had a rooting interest in Michigan's failure in the season, right? So there's a lot of that type of stuff that happened. But now he kind of look back, has way more facts, understands more of what happened, and says that's enough. That can be big in multiple ways. The NCAA doesn't want to drag this out further. They don't want to go to appeals. They don't want to go to court. All of those things. So that I think is going to play into some of it. But ultimately, like I said in segment 1, the quote smoking gun never existed. That's why, with all of this, there's 11 violations and 6 of them are level 1. Half of those, or 2/3 of those, were tacked on. They had nothing to do with the original allegations anyway. It's what happens when, they're, we need to find a way to make something stick. So we looked under the hood and found what we could. And I'm going to tell you that not all of those probably are going to even stick anyway. So we'll see. But, and then the Sharon suspension will be an interesting thing. Do they accept the 2 games? A lot of people say, including myself, that they could tack on, before I understood the difference with the COI and the enforcement, that they could tack on more just to add it. I mean, they still could. But ultimately, the punishment on a level 2 where he produced the exact thing that they, say he deleted. I don't know. You're right. They could say, that's not necessary. Maybe. I don't know. We'll find out tomorrow. But ultimately, this is not what a lot of people had intimated, particularly in the state immediately to the south of here, or about 45 miles west of here. Right? It's a bit. It's not going to be what they think, and I've been saying that for a very, very long time here. So it's going to be good for Michigan to put it behind them, given that this has been hanging over their heads. I do think that to some degree, as long as the NCAA doesn't get heavy-handed, the COI doesn't get heavy-handed, that they're going to that Michigan is more likely to accept than to appeal. So yeah, I think that's going to be how it goes, and I don't think that I've never foreseen these vacated wins, vacated title. I mean, Charlie Baker came out and said, I remember where I was on a plane home from Houston when Charlie Baker came out and said, won fair and square. And I understand he's not enforcement, but the president of the organization saying that pretty much dictates the terms of the organization, right? Postseason bans, again, no. None of these things that have been bandied about by hopeful people who had hoped that their narrative was true. Now, before we turn the page and get into some of the funnier stuff and everything, I just want to more so clarify, when I keep on saying that certain Michigan fans feed into the narrative, I just want to clarify that if you put yourself into Connor's shoes, right? Like, and this isn't necessarily even something that I've discussed with him or anything, but when you put yourself into his shoes and you're hired to do a job and you do as some would say, maybe you went a little too far, right? I think that under the purview of like, hey man, I'm going to try to do my job to the best of the ability and dot every I, cross every T, all that kind of stuff, that you don't necessarily think about 11.6.3 rule bylaw, right? Because how much was that spelled out? How, like I said on the show, I don't think it was yesterday, the day before, how much how much education did he have on that? How much did compliance come and say, all right, here's your job, so therefore, these are the strictures and limits of said job. I don't think that happened. Maybe I'm spitballing, but like, I don't believe that happened. So when you sit and you act like, oh, this is a huge deal, he shouldn't have been doing that, you're feeding into more so the punishment and the media narrative that came with this to begin with. But as we've seen, a lot of the media narrative that happened in the beginning and the drip, 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 as Steve Dace calls the psyop, which I agree with. I know there's people out there who don't, but you have to understand and look at the coordinated media campaign that happened, then stop trying to put on your reasonable, like, I just want to appear reasonable glasses and just put on logic. Because a lot of those things that came out in the early going, and we're not going to rehash those. You can go back to November 2023 episodes and understand why that was clearly a coordinated media campaign to do exactly what it did, in terms of try to essentially get Michigan to not be in the position it was, but Michigan was too strong and it did what it did. So, but there's been a lot of funny stuff that has kind of come out of this in the last, especially the last few days. So let's get to some of that, and let's do that here in just a moment. But before we do, as summer winds down, there's something nice about getting back into a routine that you love. And Wayfair makes it easy to set yourself up for the season ahead. From bedding and linens to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair is your one-stop shop to refresh your home. Listen, there's so many things, whether it's getting the last touches on your patio furniture so that you can enjoy the outside while it's still warm out here in Michigan, or just getting getting a bookshelf so you don't have books strewn about. These are the types of things that I used Wayfair for to get my house in order in the off season. The great thing is it's very quick delivery. It's very convenient. You don't have to go to a Home Goods or somewhere else to get all of those kind of cool items that are going to help put your home together. That's what makes it great. This is the perfect time to get my home ready, whether that's organizing, upgrading my workspace, or making weeknight dinners easier. Get organized, refreshed, and back to routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop for all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. So I think the funniest things, I mean, one of the things I'm going to bring up has nothing to do with the sign gate of it all, but it's hilarious and you're going to have to check it out. We'll get to that in a moment, but it is funny to see some of the names that I don't know them well enough to even tell you what they are. But you see them trying to play counter to the counter at this point, right? Like you see a lot of people, particularly in self-proclaimed Buckeye Nation, that love to point out that now Michigan fans are embracing Justin Spiro because he's telling them what they want to hear. No, like everyone's just kind of like, hey, we've been saying that. It's not that, like, he's not breaking some kind of news that anyone It's like, this is brand new information. No, we've been saying that the whole time. So when I say we, it's like me, some of my colleagues that have been out there, like telling everybody, like, here's what's likely to happen. Not the vacated wins, postseason bans, hammer talk, all of that. So when he finally says something that's, the broken clock is right twice a day type of stuff, Michigan fans were like, see, look, even the person who's been saying all along that all of this stuff was going to be this and this and this and this is actually saying the same thing we've been saying. Then that means that, like you pulled out the white surrender flag, essentially. But then you get people that have like doubled down, tripled down. The same people who, and just then the Big Ten heard everything in the COI and they were sitting there shaking their heads, and they were going to reopen the investigation and come down even harder on Michigan, only to have that narrative get absolutely destroyed by the Tony Petitti letter. Those are the same ones that are out there saying like, I'm calling out Premier Drum. I haven't even been on 11 Warriors, but I see it on the message boards, coming out and saying like, I've spoken to my sources all night and I barely slept because I found out that there, this and this are happening, and none of which is based in reality. Now, the good news is we're going to know tomorrow, and we'll find out who's right. And I think that it's becoming increasingly clear that the fever dream isn't. I do want to add one thing that should have been in the last segment. How come none of the rumors have mentioned Chris Partridge? Because he was part of those level ones. And you see Harbaugh, you see Stalions, you see Sharon, you see the university fine, but you don't see anything from Chris Partridge. Right? This Chris Partridge told a player to lie stuff. Gave a bunch of gear to. Why is none of that on there? We'll revisit that after the release. But yeah, I think that it's hilarious watching some backtrack like the Spiros of the world and some double down when it's like, I hope you're enjoying your moment in the sun, because if we're right, which again, have no way of really knowing, but all indications have been all along that we were going to be, then, you're essentially fantasy fiction. Like, how are you going to be perceived after that? Now, I do want to prepare you, if you're a Michigan fan, for an onslaught of certain malevolent actors, whether they are in the media or in the college football fan landscape, of not accepting the reality of the findings and saying, well, the NCAA got it wrong. Right? Like, if I don't accept the findings, it's not because it will be, they got it wrong because, like, I know this is speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but I know what happened. And, it would be less they got it wrong, more of they got heavy handed with it, would be if I'm wrong. But others, if the NCAA lays it all out there and expect like national media people saying like the NCAA got it wrong, because they will be unwilling to backtrack on the articles they wrote back in October, November 2023 and beyond. Understand that. Again, I don't think that I'm wrong. I don't. I've never had anything that's told me that I was going to be wrong as far as this. And I think that any of the punishments that do come down from this are going to be more about obfuscating, right? The not cooperation stuff compared to the what actually happened stuff, right? That's really what it's going to come down to. How heavy-handed do they get with Sharon? How heavy-handed do they get with Connor and Jim? And I don't think that the Connor stuff is going to be. I just don't think it's going to be what a lot of people had thought from the beginning, because he had been painted as a villain, and that doesn't mean that he is one. And there's plenty of people that I adore on the message boards that I see that believe him to be a villain because he was painted as one. Instead of taking a minute to really put yourself in his shoes and think about what he was hired to do, what was kind of laid out there, and also what others are doing, right? Just, I want to point to Dan Wetzel saying, like, we have evidence that others have done it, but for whatever reason, it's never been an article. Now, I also do believe that Spiro's, this isn't kind of I'll believe it when I see it type of thing. Spiro's thing that he said apparently yesterday that Wetzel is writing an article about, like, the origin. I have heard that. I don't know Dan personally. We follow each other on social media. But I'll believe it when I see it because he was one of the names, just to tie things together. If you go back to 2023, I said there were a lot of people who were working on trying to put all that together. Wetzel was one of them. I know that someone at and cover your ears if this is, if you don't like this, Ben. I know that someone at Fox News was. I know that someone who is no longer at ESPN. Keep in mind, Wetzel was at Yahoo at the time. Someone who is no longer at ESPN was working on it as well. And I think there was one more, but no one could get all the bases together. So I do believe that to be true, that he is working on something. I've heard of a renewed interest, but we'll find out if he actually does it. Because, again, that's something that I heard 2 years ago and it didn't happen. So we'll see if that does. Last thing, if you didn't see it, go on X, find my quote tweet, and where it tells you to read the replies and then the quote tweets. Jaden Denegal named the starter for San Diego State. And so many Buckeyes decided that they can't read and started commenting, "Oh, Bryce is a bust." It's like, Jaden Denegal, it says right there, Michigan transfer Jaden Denegal to start for San Diego State. Just read the words that are on the page. You don't even have to read the article. So that is added fun this week, as those who are looking for Michigan's demise everywhere that they can are more and more finding that they can't find it. It's priceless. It's amazing. And it's so much fun. All right. That is going to do it for us today. Tomorrow, we will not do a mailbag. I think we're not going to Canada. So sorry, Canada, Mike. You don't become American, Mike. And Danielle, that's not happening apparently. So we're going to try to do a mailbag on Saturday to make up for it, since we're not doing the traveling and all of that. So we do want to get one in. So I'll try. I will really try. But I think we're supposed to have a press conference tomorrow. We will skip that in order to bring you the reaction and all the latest news, barring them saying that we have Sharon again. That would be the only way. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again soon. Peace.